Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Coming up in the next hour, Prime Minister Narendra Modi visits areas affected by landslides in Wayanad in India's southern state of Kerala, visits relief camp to meet survivors of the landslides, also attends a review meeting, assures all possible support in relief efforts. India's development partnership continues with Maldives. External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar attends ceremony for virtual inauguration of water and sanitation projects across 28 islands in Maldives. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko accuses Ukraine of violating its airspace in eastern Mogilev region, says his country's air defense forces destroyed several objects launched from Ukraine. Student protests in Bangladesh widens to target more officials. Bangladesh Chief Justice Abdul Hassan and Central Bank Governor Abdul Rauf Talukdar stepped down following student groups' warning. Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited Wayanad and conducted aerial survey of landslides hit areas. PM also physically visited those sites ravaged by natural disaster and met the survivors in hospital and relief camps. Later, he reviewed the ongoing relief and rehabilitation operations and assured the survivors all help from the government in overcoming the challenges of life caused by this disaster.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi conducting aerial survey of the landslide-ravaged Punjarivattam, Mundakai and Attamala areas in Wayanad, Kerala on an Indian Air Force chopper. After aerial survey, he visited the landslide-hit areas in Wayanad. Prime Minister reached Churalmala, one of the areas badly hit by the massive landslide. The Prime Minister interacted with the army personnel and those involved in the relief and rescue operations. Later, Prime Minister visited the relief camp and interacted with the survivors. The Prime Minister spent almost 25 minutes in the camp where he comforted the disaster victims after hearing them patiently. Prime Minister also visited a private hospital in Mepari where he met 4 people who were rescued from the disaster site and are currently under treatment. Later, Prime Minister held a review meeting where Kerala's Chief Secretary presented the status of the rescue operations and the extent of damages in the disaster. PM in a statement said that all sections of society, from common man to agencies involved in rescue and relief operations, did their best to help the people stranded in the natural disaster.
SDRF के लोग हो, NDRF के लोग हो, सेना के लोग हो, पुलिस के जवान हो, स्थानीय मेडिकल के लोग हो या यहाँ के एनजीओज हो, सेवाभावी संस्थाएं हो, हर कोई बिना रुके तुरंत ही आपदा प्रभावित लोगों की मदद के लिए पहुंचने का प्रयास किया। जिन परिजनों ने अपने स्वजन खोए हैं, उसकी पूर्ति करना तो हम मनुष्य के लिए संभव नहीं है, लेकिन उनका भावी जीवन उनके सपने चूर-चूर न हो जाए, ये हम सबका सामूहिक दायित्व है।
PM assured the survivors that government will make all efforts to help them overcome the challenges caused by this disaster.
इस दुख की घड़ी में चाहे राज्य सरकार हो, केंद्र सरकार हो या देश के जन-जन नागरिक हो, हम सब उस संकट की घड़ी में उनके साथ हैं। सरकार ने जो नीति नियमों के तहत जो आपदा प्रबंधन के लिए राशि भेजते हैं, उसका काफी हिस्सा पहले ही दिया हुआ है और भी हिस्सा हमने तुरंत रिलीज किया है। और जैसे ही मेमोरेंडम आएगा तो बहुत ही उदारता पूर्वक इन सारी समस्याओं के समाधान के लिए केरल सरकार के साथ भारत सरकार खड़ी रहेगी।
The healing touch and patient hearing that Prime Minister gave to the survivors would continue to work as a soothing balm on their wounds for long. Bureau Report, DD India.
Moving on, President Draupadi Murmu had a fruitful state visit to Timor-Leste, the first ever by an Indian head of state to the scenic country located between Southeast Asia and the South Pacific. Here's more.
President Murmu's visit began with a bilateral meeting with her counterpart, Jose Ramos Horta. President Murmu was bestowed with the highest civilian award of Timor-Leste, the Grand Collar of the Order of Timor-Leste by President Horta. In a press statement following this, the two leaders underscored the strong bilateral relations between both countries.
India and Timor-Leste enjoy warm and friendly relations based on our shared commitment to the values of democracy and pluralism. I am confident that this will further strengthen bilateral relations between the two countries.
With the opening of Timor-Leste embassy in Delhi soon, the opening of an embassy of India in Delhi soon, we will expand, enhance the relationship from A to Z.
President also met the Prime Minister, Zanana Gusmao, and the two leaders witnessed the exchange of 3 MOUs. MOU on cultural exchanges to promote more people-to-people ties. It will also support cooperation in the field of protection, conservation and promotion of the cultural heritage of both countries. MOU between Prasar Bharati and the Timorese public broadcaster RTTL to strengthen cooperation in the field of radio and broadcasting through co-production of programs and exchange of personnel and training. MOU for visa waivers for the holders of diplomatic and official passports. Later in the day, President Murmu joined President Horta in a one-to-one interview hosted by the latter in his signature show, The Horta Show. A unique program in which both the guest and the host are heads of states. President Murmu spoke at length about her formative experiences and how education and later joining politics had empowered herself and the community as well.
क्योंकि मुझे पता है कि गरीब लोगों का क्या परिस्थिति है, उनको आगे बढ़ाने के लिए मुझे कुछ करना होगा। मैं बहुत सारे अनुष्ठान से मैंने जुड़ी और बाद में स्कूल को भी मुझे छोड़ना पड़ा। 1997 में मुझे पॉलिटिक्स ज्वाइन करना पड़ा।
President Murmu addressed the Indian community where she hailed them as ambassadors of the country.
मुझे ये जानकर प्रसन्नता हुई है कि भारत तिमोर-लेस्टे के साथ राजनयिक संबंध स्थापित करने वाले पहले देशों में से एक था। दोनों देशों के बीच मौजूद एवं सौहार्दपूर्ण संबंध लोकतंत्र और बहुलता के साझा मूल्यों पर आधारित है।
President Draupadi Murmu's visit assumes significance in light of the 10th anniversary of India's Act East policy, the foundation of India's Act East policy being ASEAN, which Timor-Leste is soon to join. With 3 MOUs and an embassy being announced in this visit, the Delhi-Dili relations have more to offer. With camera person Saurabh Shukla, this is Anjana Unnikrishnan reporting from Delhi, Timor-Leste.
India's public service broadcaster Prasar Bharati and Radio and Television of Timor-Leste have officially signed Memorandum of Understanding to enhance bilateral relations and advance collaboration in broadcasting. The MOU was signed and exchanged in the presence of President of India and Prime Minister of Timor-Leste. Ambassador of India Sandeep Chakravarti was the signatory from Prasar Bharati's side, and Jose Antonio Bello Taraleo, President of Board of Directors of Radio and Television of Timor-Leste, was signatory from their side. The quality of healthcare has improved significantly in Timor-Leste. In an exclusive conversation with DD India, Dr. Arvind Mathur from WHO, he's a representative to Timor-Leste, who's an Indian professional, said that number of healthcare centers have gone up, while Indian doctors are extending their valuable services to patients in Timor-Leste.
We have with us today Dr. Arvind Mathur, the WHO representative to Timor-Leste. What has been your experience in seeing health sector reform over the years?
It's been a privilege to be serving as WHO representative to Timor-Leste. WHO has been the UN specialized agency which has been here even before independence was restored. And successively, I would say that over a period of time, the health system, health sector as a whole, which was quite in a poor state when the independence was restored, the government has been making steady commitments, investments, and WHO as a technical partner has been really privileged to provide that support, whether it is in relation to the strengthening the service delivery of the essential health services, to developing and building the human resource capacity. When the independence was restored, there were only 10 doctors. Today, Timor-Leste boasts of having 1,000 medical doctors, with the infrastructure of almost 370 health posts, around 73 community health centers, 5 regional hospitals and 2 tertiary hospitals.
What has been, in your eyes, the contribution of India and Indian professionals especially in Timor-Leste?
I would say that India has long contributed from the time even when the referendum was there, because India played an important role. The cultural ties have been long many years old actually, with the Portuguese connection in the Goa and Timor-Leste. But specifically in the field of health, there have been Indian doctors here even before I could talk about WHO actually. Within WHO, we have been very fortunate that there have been many technical officers and technical professionals over the years who have been coming to Timor-Leste. And as was stated by the Excellency the President, that as Indians, we are the those who embrace the local culture, we are the those who become part, and with our hard work, passion and sincerity and purity, it is kind of a gelling within the system and with the people of the country.
What do you think is the scope for empowerment of women in Timor-Leste?
Empowerment of women in Timor-Leste is an ongoing journey, for example, I would say. There has been, we have on one side, a very great example where the women have been contesting the presidential elections here. 2, on the other side, that what we are looking into is at the grassroots, at the community level, at the family level, are the women empowered economically, financially?
As he said, India and Timor-Leste have a lot of scope for taking forward their learnings for development of both countries. For DD India, this is Anjana Unnikrishnan reporting from Delhi, Timor-Leste.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. Belarusian president says air defense forces destroyed about a dozen Ukrainian drones. Israeli military says about 20 Hamas Islamic Jihad militants were at the Gaza school that was struck by Israeli Air Force. And plane crash near Sao Paulo in Brazil kills all 62 people on board. Efforts underway to identify and recover bodies of the victims.
The one common theme between all major cities across the world is hope and the promise of new opportunities and possibilities that gravitates people towards them.
The reason why we advocate green transformations is because you can retain the building and you can actually modify.
There's a lot that happens when you extract sand beyond sustainable limits. It's going to change your course of your river, it's going to widen the channel, it's going to damage, and we are paying a big price.
We have 2 water reservoirs on 84 acres of land. During periods when the river water is non-saline, we store water in these reservoirs. Throughout the year, we distribute this water to residents.
Tiny houses are in vogue. Less is more. Many also assume tiny homes are more eco-friendly.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. An Israeli military spokesperson said on Saturday that around 20 Hamas and Islamic Jihad militants were operating from Gaza City School that was struck by Israeli Air Force on Saturday. Lieutenant Colonel Nadav Shoshani said on X that the compound and the mosque that was struck within it served as an active Hamas and Islamic Jihad military facility. He added that casualty figures given by Hamas-run media office do not align with the information held by the IDF, the precise munitions used and the accuracy of the strike. Russia has deployed tanks to the Kursk border with Ukraine in response to significant Ukrainian incursion and implemented a broad security regime in 3 border regions, intensifying efforts to counter Ukraine's largest attack on Russian territory. Meanwhile, Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko claimed that Ukrainian drones breached Belarusian airspace.
Russia's defense ministry on Saturday said it deployed tanks to the Kursk border area with Ukraine following Ukrainian incursion. Russia imposed a sweeping security regime in 3 border regions on Saturday as Moscow scrambled forces to counter Ukraine's biggest attack on Russian sovereign territory since the start of the war in 2022. The ministry also released footage showing tank crews and an FPV drone unit locating and hitting a target. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko said Ukrainian drones violated his country's airspace, saying Belarusian air defense forces shot down several Ukrainian launch targets, likely drones, over its territory on Friday.
At 16:04 GMT, at an altitude of 1.5 kilometers and a range of 6.5 kilometers, the air defense forces destroyed several targets over the territory of Belarus. Overnight and this morning, a search for what was destroyed is underway. We suspect that these were attack drones which had evidently violated Belarusian airspace originating from Ukraine.
On the other hand, Ukrainian Navy said its Navy and military intelligence attacked and damaged a former offshore gas platform used by Russian forces in the Black Sea. Russia's state nuclear energy company, Rosatom, has consulted with the International Atomic Energy Agency about the Kursk nuclear power plant's safety following Ukrainian incursion. Rosatom's Likhashev warned IAEA chief Grossi that the incursion poses a direct threat to both the Kursk plant and the global nuclear energy sector. Bureau Report, DD India.
And DD India correspondent Dasha Chernyshova joins us live from Moscow with more. Dasha, what is the latest on the situation at the border region of Kursk after Ukraine's incursion? Dasha, I'm afraid we can't hear you. If there's a way to unmute, we can't hear you at the moment. Dasha Chernyshova, our correspondent, connecting with us from Moscow, Russia. And those are scenes of the developments taking place as far as Russia-Ukraine is concerned. Russia has deployed tanks at the Kursk border with Ukraine in response to significant Ukrainian incursion and implemented a broad security regime as well. Those are also visuals of Alexander Lukashenko, Belarusian president. All right, Dasha, I think you're connecting with us now. If you could take us through the current development as far as the Kursk region is concerned after Ukraine's incursion.
Well, we understand that at least 76,000 people from the Kursk region have been evacuated to safer areas because of the incursion from the Ukrainian side. The counter-terrorism operation regime has been introduced by the Russian authorities. It does underline the severity of the situation, but it is also a very fluid situation. The Russian Ministry of Defense has sent reinforcements to the Kursk region, particularly to the areas directly adjacent to the Russian-Ukrainian border. Tanks as well as Grad MLRs have all been on the move and have already reached the Kursk region. And also the Russian Ministry of Defense confirms that what they have been trying to do is to prevent the further advance of the Ukrainian troops anywhere deeper into the Russian territory. But at the same time, we have been hearing repeatedly throughout Saturday about the threats of missiles, about air raid sirens going on in Russia's border region. So certainly the counter-terrorism operations regime that has been introduced actually in 3 regions of Russia, Bryansk, Belgorod as well as Kursk, does indicate how serious Russia is taking what is happening now in Kursk.
And Dasha, what are the implications of Ukrainian drones shot down in the Belarusian airspace?
Well, certainly it is a completely new development of this conflict. We understand that Belarus has been able to intercept some of those drones, but also Belarus has warned Russia about the drones that have been on their move towards Russia's Smolensk and then have diverted their flight and started to move towards Yaroslavl. This is where they have been intercepted. But the Belarusian president, Alexander Lukashenko, has said that he will be beefing up its forces on the border with Belarus. So it may be a very serious consequences and very serious development of this conflict between Russia and Ukraine, because keep in mind that Russia repeatedly has been underlying its special relationship with Belarus, because these two countries do make the union state of Russia and Belarus, and there are treaties which are also provided for the defense cooperation between Moscow and Minsk.
Dasha, thank you for joining us with those updates from Moscow. Moving on, United Kingdom, which has been hit by a series of riots after killing of 3 young girls in a July 29 knife attack in Southport, UK police has now said that they are prepared for any further outbreaks of disorder this weekend. Meanwhile, the British government is now considering changes to the Online Safety Act designed to regulate social media companies. This act allows the government to fine social media companies up to 10% of global turnover if they are found in breach. On the other hand, in an interview with The Guardian, London Mayor Sadiq Khan expressed that he felt triggered by the recent riots. He noted that the unrest has intensified fears among minority communities, making them hesitant to visit their places of worship, particularly mosques. Brazilian authorities were working on retrieving and identifying the bodies of 62 victims on Saturday after a plane crash near Sao Paulo. A regional turboprop plane fell into what aviation experts called a flat spin before crashing in a residential neighborhood in Wayanad, some 80 kilometers northwest of Sao Paulo on Friday, killing everyone on board. More than 20 bodies of victims have already been transported to the morgue in Sao Paulo. India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, has said that India-Maldives development cooperation embodies the motto of the partnership, imagined by Maldives, delivered by India. He made these remarks at the inauguration of water and sanitation project in Maldives. Minister Jaishankar also called on President of Maldives and met his counterpart in the island nation.
India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar on Saturday said that bedrock of partnership is the mutual benefit of peoples of both countries. Jaishankar's remark came at a program for the virtual inauguration and handing over of the water and sanitation projects in 28 islands. The projects were commissioned under the Indian line of credit.
India-Maldives development cooperation embodies the motto of our partnership, imagined by Maldives, delivered by India. It will be our endeavor to harness this defining feature of our relationship and scale greater heights. And I hope, Excellency President, with your guidance and encouragement, our joint efforts, our joint activities, and our shared vision will form an important milestone in the journey of our two nations together.
Earlier, India's External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar called on Maldives President Dr. Mohammad Moizu and conveyed greetings of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Jaishankar said that New Delhi was committed to deepen India-Maldives ties for the benefit of the people in the two countries and the region. Dr. S. Jaishankar also met his Maldivian counterpart Muza Zamir to discuss all areas of bilateral cooperation to deepen the partnership between India and Maldives. Both leaders witnessed signing of MOU between National Payments Corporation of India and Ministry of Economic Development and Trade of Maldives on introduction of digital payment system in the Maldives. The minister also highlighted India's neighbourhood first policy and said that Maldives is one of the cornerstones of our policy.
Maldives is one of the cornerstones of our neighbourhood first policy. It is also one of our vision saga, as well as of our commitment to the Global South. For India, neighbourhood is a priority, and in the neighbourhood, Maldives is a priority. We also share the closest of bonds of history and kinship.
Jaishankar also met with Defence Minister of Maldives, Mohammad Hassan Mamoon. Leaders held discussion on defence and security cooperation, joint initiatives for maritime security and shared interest in maintaining peace and stability in the region. Dr. Jaishankar also jointly planted a sapling along with Foreign Minister Muza Zamir and Climate Change, Environment and Energy Minister. Bureau Report, DD India.
In a bid to enhance India's rail network connectivity, Union Cabinet chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi approved 8 new rail projects on Friday. Among these are the ambitious Jalgaon rail line for Maharashtra. India's Rail Minister Ashwani Vaishnav announced that the land acquisition for this line is in its final stage and is expected to be completed within 4 to 5 years. He also highlighted that this corridor will include India's longest transport tunnel, spanning about 23.5 kilometers.
जालना जलगांव प्रोजेक्ट है, इसमें इंडिया की लॉन्गेस्ट ट्रांसपोर्ट टनल भी इसी प्रोजेक्ट में बनेगी। 23.5 किलोमीटर लंबी टनल बनेगी, जो भारत की सबसे लंबी ट्रांसपोर्टेशन टनल होगी।
India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal has said that India International Jewellery Show in Mumbai that India will retaliate if G7 imposes irrational demands on India's diamond industry. He added that the government will also have testing for their products before it can get sold in the country.
Should the G7 try to impose an irrational demand and force our industry to send all our diamonds first to Antwerp, we are not going to accept that. And if it should require any retaliation, we'll even consider any retaliation. Maybe we can have some G7 goods going to a remote part of India for testing before they're allowed to be sold in India. I've even considered that option.
Let's now turn to other stories making news around the world. Former YouTube CEO and early Google employee Susan Wojcicki has died at the age of 56, 2 years after being diagnosed with cancer. Confirming the news on microblogging site X, Google CEO Sundar Pichai expressed his deep sadness, stating he was unbelievably saddened by the loss of his dear friend. The remnants of Storm Debbie caused flash flooding in northern Pennsylvania and southern New York on Friday, leaving dozens of people stranded in their homes. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un revisited a flooded area near the country's borders with China to address plans to support those affected by recent heavy rains and floods. The plan includes bringing about 15,400 people to the country's capital until new homes are built. And still to come on DD India News Hour, we talk about the unrest situation in neighborhood Bangladesh. India's finance minister meets with RBI Central Board of Directors, urges banks to prioritize core banking.
Complex issues, hidden agendas, twists and turns, strategic games. We think all dots are linked. We just need to connect them. Join me every week as I connect the dots to unravel hidden designs in statecraft, mysteries, and decode issues that matter to you. Watch Connecting the Dots with me at these times on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Protests continue to dominate Bangladesh. After deposing Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and installing an interim government, protesters are now going after those in power and considered loyal to the previous regime. The targets were Chief Justice of Bangladesh Supreme Court and Governor of Bangladesh Bank and others. Amidst the unrest, focus is also turning to reports of violence against Hindus and other minorities in the restive state. Meanwhile, India is keeping strict vigil at the borders. Even as the new interim government in Bangladesh, led by Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus, tries to bring the law and order situation under control, protests continue in Dhaka and elsewhere. The public anger now appears directed towards those in positions of power and seen as remnants of the previous Sheikh Hasina regime. The latest to go is Chief Justice of Bangladesh Supreme Court. Bangladesh Bank Governor Abdul Rauf Talukdar also resigned, but his resignation was not accepted.
This judiciary went to the end of the line of a human rights breach, yet it didn't take any cases from the appellate division. It didn't run any investigation nor deliver any justice. We want all of those involved with it, including the Chief Justice, to resign.
The resignation of Chief Justice came after students warned him of dire consequences if he did not step down. Students, advocates and some other people gathered on the Supreme Court premises and gave the Chief Justice and other judges an ultimatum to resign by 1 p.m. Before the Chief Justice, it was Bangladesh Bank Governor Abdul Rauf Talukdar who was forced to step down. Meanwhile, former Bangladesh Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's son said the deposed leader wants to return home.
All of those stories that you're hearing, they're just rumors. My mother has not reached out to any country. She has not applied for asylum anywhere. She wants to go back to Bangladesh, whether it is to be in politics or to retire.
Sheikh Hasina has been sheltering in India since Monday following the anti-government uprising. Sheikh Hasina's son, Sajid Wazed, also called the interim Bangladesh government led by Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus completely unconstitutional. A Bangladeshi student leader who was instrumental in overthrowing Sheikh Hasina and is now part of an interim government said she must face trial when she returns home. Earlier on Friday, hundreds of Hindu demonstrators took to the streets of capital Dhaka, protesting against attacks on their properties in different corners of the country after fall of Sheikh Hasina's regime last week. The United Nations also condemned the recent attacks on Hindu minorities in Bangladesh. US Congressman Shri Thanedar wrote to US Secretary of State Antony Blinken on persecutions of Hindus in Bangladesh. He writes, "When Congress returns from recess, we must hold hearings to learn more about the failures to protect the Hindus and other minority groups in Bangladesh, as well as how to prevent these horrific actions from taking place again in the future." Meanwhile, India is closely monitoring the developments in Bangladesh. The 2,000-kilometer border between West Bengal and Bangladesh is vulnerable due to political unrest in Dhaka, prompting the Border Security Force of India to be on high alert. Indian state of Odisha has also beefed up surveillance along its coastline. Bureau Report, DD India. The Commonwealth Journalists Association, in a letter to Dr. Muhammad Yunus, the head of the interim government of Bangladesh, strongly urged him to take swift action to ensure physical safety and secure working environment for journalists and media outlets in Bangladesh, who in recent days have experienced serious physical attacks and acts of intimidation. The letter further states that a free media, which is protected by law against acts of violence and intimidation, is essential for healthy democracy. And to talk about the situation in Bangladesh, joining me is a special guest, Lieutenant General Syed Atta Hasnain is joining us now. Good evening and welcome, sir, to the program. Sir, how do you assess the evolving situation in Bangladesh? There is an interim government at place, but the protesters seem to be calling the shots. Still, the resignation of the Chief Justice, a case in point.
It is quite obvious that the actions which have been initiated by the students in the form of a revolution are still ongoing. There is an interim government which has come into place supposedly for 90 days or so. But the students in their wrath, because of the heavy casualty figures in particular, because of the angst that they carry with them against certain personalities in the previous government, against the police forces, will perhaps not rest content until most of these people, or at least all of them, have resigned or left the country. So we can expect that this chaos, which we are getting a lot of assurances from the new government that things are going to be back in order very soon. But when an event like this takes place, obviously the whole country goes into a churn. And it's very unlikely that it will immediately return. There are lots of lumpen elements. There is a very large number of criminals who have escaped from jails because the police force is defunct at the moment. And because of this, the law and order problem is going to be a challenge for quite some time. So this is something that we have to keep waiting and watching. There's nothing very much which can be done from outside. It is the government, the interim government, and perhaps assisted by the Bangladesh army, which can resolve this.
And sir, given the disturbing reports of attacks on Hindus and other minorities, what are the real risks of this student-led protest and upheaval being hijacked by extremist elements in the society?
See, we are all aware that Bangladesh is a very, very complex society. Bangladesh's polity itself is very complex. My visits to Bangladesh have always revealed to me that at the street level, there is a tremendous amount of turbulence which is caused by a number of radicals. Right from 1971 onwards, the radical element has always opposed India, particularly India's friendship with the Bangladesh government and the people of Bangladesh. So as a result of this, the moment a thing like this happens, an event like this happens, the first target is anything related to India. This happened with the Indira Gandhi Cultural Center, it happened with the various temples, the Hindu temples, and obviously a number of Hindu citizens who were targeted. The interim government is giving a lot of assurance, no doubt. They are giving assurance because they also understand that the international community is concerned, India is concerned. After all, at the end of the day, after a revolution, food has to be put down on the table for everyone, and if nothing is done in a hurry, the economy of Bangladesh is going to go into an eclipse. So as a result, the government is responsible and is making a lot of gestures towards this. But without a police force in place, with a lot of volunteers only on the ground, it may be a challenge at this time. I would expect that the Bangladesh army should be stepping in to ensure this kind of a security.
A little more on that, sir. When the Bangladesh interim government assures India of restoring law and order and protecting the minorities and other sections of the population, what is the power and efficacy of Muhammad Yunus's government at the moment when the society is going through this journey and the very arms and agencies of the government, as you mentioned, the police force, for example, is in disarray as we speak?
If you really look at it right from the top, even Mr. Yunus himself has been a very, very able banker, and that too at the grassroots level, Grameen Bank.
Yes.
But besides that, his own experience in governance of a country has been very limited. And he's been out of touch for fairly long from there. And the number of people who have been included in the government are ex-secretaries to the government, etc., who have been out of power for fairly long. So it takes a long time before they can really get effective, get hold of their own offices, their own duties and tasks. So I foresee that although lots and lots of assurances are coming, I'm not sure that this kind of a situation can be restored so easily and in a very early time frame. Of course, India has to wait and watch. There's not much that can be done from here directly. What we need to ensure also is not to be provocative. Because in times such as this, there is a tremendous, of course, issuing out concerns for the minorities there, for the Hindu population, etc., is very well in order. After all, who else will do it? But at the same time, we have to hold our horses in terms of provocation. And that is something because at the moment, tempers are running wild, lots of emotions and sentiments, and rumors are abounding everywhere. But that in a situation such as that, I think it's best to continue holding our horses.
And finally, General Hasnan, it's not just India. The United Nations, members of the US Congress have also pushed for safety of the minority. Situation like this, in a mature manner, collective international pressure could make a difference, you think?
Absolutely. This is the time, I think. In fact, India can perhaps take the lead there to a great extent, where it can actually sensitize many governments, international governments, who may not be so fully aware or whose national interests don't extend into the region of Bangladesh as such. But their word in the international community makes a huge difference. Their presence at the United Nations, in the Security Council itself, makes a huge difference. So I think India can take up that initiative to make sure that they sensitize the Indian diplomats, or maybe even some retired diplomats, veteran diplomats, could be sent out to sensitize these countries at a time such as this.
On that note, Lieutenant General Sayyidat Hasnan, thank you very much, sir, for joining us in the program and sharing your perspective. India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman attended a meeting of members of Board of Directors of Reserve Bank of India, RBI, on Saturday. The meeting was held at the office of RBI in the national capital. The meeting saw participation of RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das and other Board of Directors of the bank. The meeting was held after Union Budget 2024-25 and days after the Lok Sabha passed the Finance Bill with a few amendments. Finance Minister, while addressing the press conference, stressed that banks shall bring innovative products and also raise deposits.
My emphasis also would be the same with the banks, and I, in fact, will be meeting with the banks for various reasons to take up government's priority sector lending area, emphasis on some of the government schemes, and also in that process talking to them about how it is important for them to go back to collecting deposit, the old-fashioned get back to collect deposit from everybody, which means banks, RBI has given them some liberty in managing the interest rates. Using that liberty, they should make deposit attractive in the banks.
And RBI Governor Shaktikanta Das addressed the press conference. He said that interest rates on deposits and lending are deregulated and that banks are free to decide the rates.
Banks fix their deposit rates, they fix their interest rates. The position, the situation could vary from bank to bank. At times you would have seen certain banks launch a special drive to raise deposits. So they tend to give a higher rate of interest for deposit mobilization. I think overall, if you see, there has been considerable amount of stability in our interest rate regime, whether with regard to the central bank, I'm not saying with regard to the central bank, but overall in the financial system, I think our interest rates have not been very volatile, they have been fairly stable.
On Saturday, a memorandum of understanding was signed between India's Ministry of External Affairs and New Space India Limited for grant assistance for the launch of Nepal's Monal satellite. The satellite is an indigenous satellite developed in Nepal under the aegis of NAST. A Nepali space startup has assisted Nepali students in design and fabrication of the satellite. It aims to build a vegetation density database of Earth's surface and is expected to be launched soon. The death of a medical student at Kolkata's R.J. Kaur Medical College on Friday has sparked widespread outrage across the nation. Family members have alleged that the student was sexually assaulted before being killed. On Saturday, doctors at Delhi's Ram Manohar Lohia Hospital held candle march in remembrance of the student and condemned her death. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Indian Prime Minister congratulates wrestler Aman Sehrawat for winning bronze medal in Paris Olympics 2024. You're watching DT India News Hour. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Time now for all the action from the world of sports. Let's talk about the updates from the Paris Olympics. Prime Minister Narendra Modi called and congratulated Indian wrestler Aman Sehrawat, who won bronze medal at the Paris Olympics. Sehrawat won the bronze at the men's freestyle 57 kg event to become India's youngest medal winner at the Summer Games.
नमस्ते सर जी।
अमन, आपको बहुत बहुत बधाई और आपके उज्जवल भविष्य के लिए भी अनेक अनेक शुभकामनाएं।
धन्यवाद सर जी, बहुत खुशी हुई जी।
आपने अपने नाम के अनुसार सारे देश का मन भर दिया है।
हाँ जी, मेरी देशवासियों का आशीर्वाद था जी और आपकी मेहनत थी जी, जो इतने और एक सुविधा दी जी, टॉप्स ने और साई ने जी, आपने भी तो सबकी मेहनत था जी।
बहुत कम खिलाड़ी ऐसे होते हैं जिनके लिए छत्रसाल स्टेडियम में जो अपना घर बना ले, और आपने तो उसको ही अपना घर बना करके पूरा अपने आप को खपा दिया।
हाँ जी, मतलब घर ने भी नहीं रहे जी इतने साल, तो उस खाड़ी में आई तो वही घर समझ लिया जी हमने तो।
वही तो।
हाँ जी।
और देखिए अमन, मैं मानता हूं देशवासियों के लिए आपका जीवन बहुत ही प्रेरक है। एक तो आप सबसे छोटी आयु के हमारे एथलीट हैं जो इस प्रकार से मेडल लेकर के आ रहे हैं। आप सबसे छोटी आयु के हैं और इसके लिए आपके लिए तो इतना जीवन, इतना लंबा समय आपके पास है। मैं मानता हूँ आप देश को खुशियों से भर देंगे।
हाँ जी, 2028 में जी ओलंपिक में गोल्ड ले आएंगे जी, पूरी मेहनत कराएंगे जी ओलंपिक में गोल्ड के लिए।
मुझे पूरा विश्वास है आप सफल होने वाले हैं। और आपने जीवन में भी बहुत संघर्ष किया, माँ बाप खोने के बाद भी आप बिल्कुल जीवन में डटे रहे। ये बहुत ही प्रेरक जीवन है आपका।
हाँ जी, संघर्ष तो जी यार एक सब न करना पड़ा है जी, किसी न किसी तरीके से करना पड़ा है जी। आप भी तो संघर्ष करो जी, वो भी तो एक संघर्ष ही है।
नहीं, हमारा तो क्या है, हम देश की सेवा में लगे हैं। आप लोग तो दिन रात, मैं तो आप न रात को सोते हैं न आप दिन सुबह, कितनी ठंड क्यों न हो, रजाई ओढ़ के सोने का मन कर जाए तो भी आप तो मैदान में जाके मेहनत करते हो, तब जाकर के यहाँ पहुंचते हो।
हाँ जी।
वहाँ सब साथियों को क्या लग रहा है, क्योंकि मुझे लगता है शायद पुरुषों में तो आप ही हैं जो कुश्ती के मैदान में आगे आए।
हाँ जी, मतलब एक ही क्वालिफाई हुआ था जी पुरुषों में, तो बस यही सोच रहा था भाई यार बार रेसलिंग में मेडल आता तो अब की बात यही जिम्मेवारी है तो मेडल दिलाने की, तो मैंने अपना पूरा 100% दिया जी।
नहीं, वाकई आपने बहुत बहुत लगन से काम किया और देश को जो आशा थी उसको भरने के लिए आपने भरपूर काम किया है।
आज मैं देशवासियों उम्मीद रेसलिंग वाला तो जी गोल्ड की थी पर वो नहीं ले पाए, पर 2028 में जरूर लाऊंगे जी।
आप देखिए, आप गोल्ड हो, सिल्वर हो, ब्रॉन्ज हो, आप उस चिंता को छोड़ दीजिए। आपने देश को बहुत दिया है और देशवासी हर कोई सीना तान करके अमन का नाम ले रहा है। आपने इतनी सिद्धि और बहुत छोटी आयु में सिद्धि पाई है।
इब्बे तो जी कुछ नहीं दिया, इब्बे तो बहुत कुछ देना है देश तब तो।
नहीं, मुझे पूरा भरोसा है, जिसका ऐसा सपना होता है ना वो देता ही है।
हाँ जी।
चलिए अमन, मुझे बहुत अच्छा लगा, आपने देश का नाम रोशन किया है और आपका जीवन देश के नौजवानों के लिए बहुत बड़ी प्रेरणा बनेगा।
Indian men's hockey team won back-to-back bronze medals at the Tokyo and Paris Olympics after a long time. DT India correspondent Narayan Singh spoke to India player Sanjay Rana to know about the team's strategy and planning for this mega tournament.
back-to-back medals in the hockey at the Paris Games, and after Tokyo it was second bronze for India, and it created history after a long gap, winning back-to-back medals in the Olympics. Right now I am joined by Sanjay. Sanjay, a fantastic performance, बहुत शानदार खेला आप लोगों ने।
काफ़ी टाइम से जैसे एशियन गेम्स में हमने क्वालिफाई किया था ओलंपिक के लिए, उसी टाइम से हम फुल तैयारी में लगे हुए हैं, प्रैक्टिस कर रहे हैं। प्रो लीग के मैचेस वगैरह थे, जो हमारी प्लानिंग थी उसके ऊपर हम काम कर रहे थे काफ़ी लंबे टाइम से, और हमारा यही था कि इस बार मेडल का रंग हम चेंज करें, लेकिन हम सेमीफाइनल लूज कर गए किसी कारण, तो जैसे कि हम गोल्ड नहीं जीते।
ब्रिटेन के साथ मैच था क्वार्टर फाइनल, बहुत शानदार रहा। 10 मैन डाउन हो गए थे आप, 10 लोगों के साथ खेलना, वो भी एक क्वार्टर फाइनल में ओलंपिक जैसे टूर्नामेंट में, कितना मुश्किल था? कैसे आपने उस चीज को मतलब एक बराबर रखा अपने आप को जो ब्रिटेन की टीम थी उनके साथ?
जैसे अमित को कार्ड हुआ, ये एक पार्ट है स्पोर्ट्स का कि आपको कभी भी कुछ भी हैपन हो सकता है वहाँ पे। अगर तो हमने कार्ड होने के बाद ये सोचा कि यार आज अमित के लिए खेलना है, और इनसे कुछ भी हो जाए हम हारेंगे नहीं, चाहे हमें डबल ड्यूटी करनी पड़े या चाहे कोई इंजरी भी हो, कोई मैटर नहीं करता, हमें मैच निकालना ही निकालना है। तो बहुत टफ हो जाता है 10 मैन के लिए, आप डिफेंस करते रहोगे पूरे टाइम, और आपको मतलब बिल्कुल अपना 100% देना होगा हर चीज़ में। शायद इन सभी चीज़ों के करके हम वो मैच जीते।
इस बार कुछ विशेष प्लानिंग थी कि गोल इस बार जो अंतिम क्षण में गोल खाते वो नहीं होने देना है?
अब जैसे कि अगर कोई टीम जीत रही है, तो जैसे आपने वर्ल्ड कप में देखा हुआ जर्मनी और ऑस्ट्रेलिया का मैच था, ऑस्ट्रेलिया ने लास्ट मिनट में गोल खाए, तो ये नहीं है कि एक इंडिया टीम ही लास्ट मिनट में गोल होते हैं, नहीं, अगर आप जीत रहे हो और आप लास्ट के 2 या 3 मिनट आपको डिफेंस करने पड़ते हैं, तो कहीं ना कहीं कोई जगह हम लूज कर जाते हैं जहाँ से गोल या कुछ भी, वो हर टीम के होते हैं। लेकिन इस बार प्लानिंग बहुत अच्छी थी, सबने मिलके प्लान किए, और प्रो लीग के मैच जो हमने खेले उसके अंदर हम जो भी गलतियां मिस्टेक करते थे, हमने वो मिस्टेक सुधारी है इस बार बहुत ज़्यादा।
In an update coming in from the Paris Olympics, the ad hoc division of the Court of Arbitration for Sports has extended time till August 11 this year for the sole arbitrator of Dr. Annabelle Bennett in the Indian wrestler Vinesh Fogart versus United World Wrestling case. The hearing on the matter concluded on Friday after it accepted Vinesh's appeal against her ouster for being about 100 grams overweight on the morning of her final against the eventual gold winner Sarah Ann Hansband of USA. In her appeal, Fogart requested a joint silver as she was found overweight after she won the semi-final in Paris. India's women wrestler Ritika Huda lost her quarterfinals bout in the women's freestyle 76 kg category. Huda failed to advance to the semis after losing to Kyrgyzstan's world #1 wrestler Aperi Medet Krizi. However, she may still be able to compete for the bronze medal. According to the rules, she can compete for bronze if Kyrgyz wrestler advances to the final round. Ritika Huda will face the semi-finalists for bronze playoff. That's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. This app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan this QR code on your screens to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour. Namaskar.